Hi, welcome to your very first tutorial in the series of videos about building web applications using the entire architecture. Before watching this video, it is mandatory that you have a basic understanding of the .NET platform and various application architectures such as MVC and entire, etc. Throughout this particular application in this series of videos, we would be using the entire architecture, and I would teach you how to develop some really powerful and advanced web applications using the entire architecture. So let's jump right into it. The entire architecture consists of 4 layers: the business layer, the domain layer, the data layer, and the user interface layer. So let's start by making these 4 layers, and what we are aiming at in this particular video is to form a kind of framework wherein the 4 layers are formed, and in the videos that follow we would be working on this particular framework and building on each and every layer and understand what goes into the making of each of these layers. So let's start by making a solution. I start off with a new project which will be my business class layer, and it is important to remember that the business class layer, the data class layer, and the domain class layer are all class libraries, whereas the user interface layer will actually be the website which is presented to the user. So I rename my class library as business class layer, and I choose an appropriate folder for this. So I have a separate folder on my desktop. So let me create a separate folder on my desktop called my company website. So I'm creating a website which will hold details of all the employees in my particular company, and it will also hold the database of all the employees and allow me to make various changes to that particular database. So I chose the folder my company website, which I created right now on my desktop, and I renamed this particular project as business class layer. So I make sure that a separate directory is not created. Since I have already created the folder, a separate directory for my solution is not created, and I click on OK. Immediately after I do this, a business class layer project is created in my solution with a class1.cs file, which is the C# class file which is created within this particular project. And in the desktop, on my desktop, I have a my company website which has the business class layer folder in it with all these files in it. Once I have created the business class layer, I can go on to follow the same steps to add a new project to this particular solution and perform the same set of steps and make the data class layer. I check the location of my project, which is my company website on my desktop, which is correct. So I have 2 projects now, but my solution is called business class layer. That's all right. So so I have created the data class layer and the business class layer, and I go on to create the domain class layer. Now the only layer remaining, which is the user interface layer, is a website which I add as a new website, an empty website, and I name it my company. Oh, my website's already here. So I have the 4 layers, and now within my website what I do is I add all the necessary folders which will be involved in the code, which I will be explaining in detail when I do the user interface layer video. So I had some of the default folders which will be needed for me to create the front end, and I also add the web.config file, which is important for defining all my configuration. Once I have done this, I can rename all these class files in each one of these layers to correspond to that particular layer. Data layer. Yes. And only in the domain layer, since the domain layer will hold a list of all your classes, which will be real world entities in your company. Let me actually create a class called employees. Employee. .cs. Since I will be mainly operating on the various attributes of an employee in my company. So the only CS file which I will be working on in this particular application is employee.cs in my domain class layer. Whereas if you want to extend the functionalities to your customers and clients, then you can create a customers.cs file and a client.cs file, which will be explained to you in detail in the domain class layer video. So we have the 4 layers created in order, and in the following tutorials we will be looking into each one of these layers and develop functionalities for each of these layers separately.